Welcome back to the ECB Cyber Bar. Pull up a stool and grab your favorite cyber cocktail. My name is Gamo, and today I'm joined by special guest Derek. And today we're going to talk about a lot of statistics. We're going to talk about ransomware, cyber risk in the banking sector. But before we get into all of that, I would like Derek to introduce himself. Tell me about yourself, your cyber background, whatever you feel like.
Thanks, Gamu. Where do I start? I mean, it's been a long journey. So my name is Derek, based out of South Africa and working very closely with a lot of organizations in Zimbabwe as well. My background goes way back, I think, early 2026 about. I started my career in consulting at IBM in South Africa, looking at cloud computing as an area of specialty, and then moved into further consulting at PwC, specializing in digital forensics and cybersecurity. That was my formal introduction into cybersecurity. And we worked with a lot of organizations in public and private sector there as well. And then the itch of getting into the vendor space kicked in. And then I moved on to work at Darktrace as a cyber technology specialist, moving up the ranks into management there as well. And then also they moved into understanding the cybersecurity business a bit more, where I moved into the channel side of things, where I run the channel for SentinelOne Africa, so covering across different organizations across the continent, helping them from a cyber security strategy perspective, and working with a lot of partners as well across the continent. So that's where I am now. Personal capacity, I don't think there's time to get into that, but I think we'll keep it about cyber today, but very passionate about the space and proudly Zimbabwean as well.
Okay, thank you for the intro. I think your LinkedIn profile is very packed. And, as a young professional in cybersecurity, I'm quite inspired by all of that journey. But anyways, let's get back to business. So like I said, we're going to talk a bit about statistics. And according to an article, African banks face 73% more cyber attacks than the global average. What I want to know from you is, do you think this is an exaggeration? Do you think it's paranoia? What are we saying?
See, stats are always interesting because you base it off of someone's assessment of the space. But I think it's close to accurate because of how strategic Africa is as a continent to the entire global economy. And a lot of organizations benefit from Africa as a continent, and we're doing a lot of business that attracts a lot of attention. There's a lot of money moving around, and as a result, we are also disrupting quite a bit in the digitization side of things. So there's a lot of digital transformation activity that's going on that trickles down to a lot of our systems moving from manual to digital. I think with that fast-paced innovation and growth, sometimes the pace of cybersecurity keeping up with digital disruption, I think we find ourselves a little bit lagging behind. And that makes it very attractive for adversaries, right? And as a result, we see a lot of cases that are either reported or not reported around cyber attacks that are impacting our continent. So I think it's close to accurate, but you obviously would take it with a little bit of pinch of salt in some cases, but I think we're very much close to that stat.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that insight. So from what I've researched, I've noticed that currently ransomware is the most, let's say, popular cyber attack. It's got the most impact right now. And, especially with AI, it's become even more aggressive. So can you just unpack a little bit about what exactly ransomware is and why we should take it very seriously? And according to another article written by Sophos, 65% of banks were hit by ransomware in 2024. So my first question is, can you explain a bit more on what it actually is, the impact, and then also, do you think that banks should be disclosing these incidents more? Because most institutions just sweep things under the rug for reputational purposes. Yes. But this is people's money. This is people's livelihood. So can you just expand a bit more on that?
So I think ransomware goes back to the old days where you're held ransom by someone for whatever reason, right? Whether they need you to pay money or they're trying to achieve a bigger goal and to hold someone for ransom. And in the digital world, it applies the same concept, right? Where you're holding organizations to ransom by disrupting operations in their systems. Now, there are different forms of it where somebody might hold you ransom by stealing your data and asking you to pay for it, or they might just disrupt systems from operating and wait for you to pay for them to, allow you to operate again, right? So there's an element of entering an environment, either stealing data and just stopping operations in your environment. And this is something that's very prevalent because it's very attractive for our adversaries nowadays, right? Your attackers are more sophisticated than they were years back. Years back, it was for fun, right?
Yeah.
A little kid hacks into environment and sees it as a trophy, but there's a lot of money that goes into disrupting business operations now that your very sophisticated attackers that use that as a way to either, make money, or they might have a bigger agenda associated to nation state attacks as well. So because it's something that is very attractive, it means there's a lot of money at stake, right? And I think until you're targeted or compromised, a lot of our organizations don't have an appreciation of how significant the impact can be, right? The average ransomware attack, will cost organizations millions, right? So if you see a bank, being attacked, the money that they're paying is probably a couple of millions that they have to, because the repercussions are even larger, and the larger fines associated with fines related to customer data being stolen, etc. And hence it's something that I think absolutely our organization should be reporting. If you look at a lot of the requirements around regulation, it is important for organizations to report cyber attacks related to ransomware, because they know that the impact is massive, right? And it also, from an industry perspective, ensures that there's alignment around awareness of the importance of it, but also you're dealing with customer information, you're dealing with very complicated systems. So it's important for organizations to disclose that. I think more importantly, from an Africa perspective and more looking at Zimbabwe, I think within the banking sector, there's a lot of digital innovation that's going on there. And I think the awareness around how do we standardize the cybersecurity component in what we're doing as organizations becomes very critical, because that also, one, ensures that our organizations are more secure or are taking cybersecurity a lot more serious at not only management but board level, and the right investments are being made to be proactive around securing these environments. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. The third statistic I'd like to bring out, and you mentioned the costs of data breaches. So the average cost of a data breach currently is about $5.1 million US, and that's huge. And I think data breaches have a trickle-down effect. It's not just about the money that was stolen. There's a lot of other factors that come into it. So can you just mention like a couple of factors that increase that cost of a data breach within any sector, but particularly within the banking sector? What are some of the impacts that increase that data breach cost?
Well, there are a lot of factors that you have to consider. And I know we were discussing earlier, tying this to cyber insurance as a concept as well. But when you're breached, outside of operations being impacted, there's reputational impacts, right? There's investigations that need to be conducted. Those are all costs associated to the breach. Outside of you losing money from the business itself, there's fines that you also need to consider, right? That you have to pay for. And when you bring all these different aspects together, you have to do press releases in some cases and all of that, right? All those are costs that you have to factor in when you think about a cyber breach. So beyond reputational damage, beyond operations being affected in some industries, if you look at, mining, for example, if a cyber breach happens within a mining environment, lives could be lost, right?
Oh, yes.
So beyond what we look at is just, oh, it's a breach, our system stopped working for an hour. There's a lot that goes around it that you have to pay for as a repercussion of that breach happening. So I think if we bring it back to the banking sector, you're dealing with very sensitive information. You're dealing with customer data, right? Which is worth a lot, right? And that itself means you might be sued
Oh, yeah.
by customers as well. You might lose further revenue if that reputation is impacted. Customers move from one bank to the other. If I know that my information is not secure with you, I might move from your bank to another bank, right? So that's all revenue that's lost as a result. So if you combine all these different factors, the repercussions are massive. Banks can lose millions as a matter of a breach happening. And that ties it, I think, to a broader conversation of, okay, is it better to be preventative than reactive, right? What is the cost of prevention compared to the impact, right?
Yeah.
If I have a ransomware attack where I'm charged to pay $10 million, right, and our budget for investment in cybersecurity was 300,000,
Yeah.
right? You equate the risk and what you're trying to save there, they don't really equate. So I think that's something that our organizations maybe need to be thinking about, and there's an awareness aspect that needs to go into it to say, really, what is the cost of an attack? And, you know, are we actually saving money by exposing ourselves and trying to save on investment than we'd rather pay $2 million investment in cybersecurity to save ourselves from a 10 million bill that we have to pay from somewhere, right? So definitely, I think that's basically how you'd want to look at it.
Okay, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to add to that, when you think about, again, just tying it back to investment, right, and what we prioritize, I think it's important for our organizations to understand that cybersecurity is not an afterthought anymore. It has to form the fabric of everything that we do within an organization, right? As long as we're operating on systems, as long as we're using the internet, as long as we're having some kind of connectivity in our business, cybersecurity has to be fundamental and critical. So when you look at those scenarios, if we have a Twitter account, for example, right, the first thought is, well, that's a part of EcoCache.
Yes.
Right? So when you think about the security first concept in every aspect, if we've got, applications we're using, if we've got, accounts that we're leveraging on social platforms, that all forms part of our digital estate. And when we're looking at the security first approach, that means that there's a gap there in factoring in security first as an approach. So so it becomes something that we have to really reconsider as organizations to say, are we looking at cybersecurity as an afterthought, or cybersecurity is at the core of everything that we do as a business and as an organization? And by the way, every employee is responsible for it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just the CIO, the CISO, or upper management. Every employee, from the janitor, has to think about cybersecurity when they think about being part of an organization.
Definitely. And echoing onto that, I think it all comes down to awareness.
Yeah.
Enforcing cybersecurity awareness within your organization.
Yeah.
To this day, some people don't know, they don't understand what cybersecurity is. They'll be like, what's that?
Correct.
But if you ask someone what IT is, like, sure,
Yeah.
they'll have an idea. But if you go and ask what cybersecurity is, they're confused. Someone who's probably having an IT position might not be 100% clear on that. So I think it's very important to, educate your employees,
Absolutely.
host regular workshops, different ways of just keeping people aware, because like what you said, it's not an afterthought anymore. It has to be, it's here now.
Yeah.
And it's here to stay.
Absolutely.
So moving on from that, I'd like to touch on the frameworks. We have so many acronyms in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
We've got the ISO, we've got the NIST, and all of that. Can you please just explain the importance of these frameworks, what exactly they entail, and whether you think banks are really aligned? Because a bank could easily say, yeah, we're ISO compliant, but it's just a paper.
Correct.
But their systems are not reflecting that. So could you just give your thoughts on that? Yeah.
I like the fact that you made the distinction that it's just a paper or not, right? And the first word that comes to mind is culture, the culture of the organization. What you're trying to achieve with the frameworks that we're talking about is shifting the culture of how organizations operate, right? Speaking to that cyber security first concept as well, right? Now, the frameworks basically are almost like a playbook of how to achieve cyber resilience in your organization, right? So ISO, NIST, you name it, right? Basically trying to achieve the same thing almost. And they really give you the baseline of what a good cyber culture in your organization is.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one thing to implement systems, but it's one thing to use them. So that's where we go into people, process, technology. All these three have to work combined to achieve that cyber resilience that we want to achieve through ISO and NIST, etc. So, if you don't have a compass, you don't know where you're going to go. Right? You're going to try to shoot everywhere and not achieve or get to a destination. So they basically give you that compass to help you achieve cyber resilience within the cybersecurity framework. And I think the baseline frameworks that we should align with, like ISO is a no-brainer. Any organization that's not ISO certified, I don't think is really taking cybersecurity very seriously. And I think that's where legislation, regulation should be a bit more strict around that, to ensure that organizations are ISO compliant and are compliant to certain frameworks, at least bare minimum, right? And I know it's a journey, but I think, there has to be repercussions for not being ISO certified, because unfortunately what happens is a lot of organizations say, well, we're on that journey, we're working on it. Right? But we're never getting to the destination. Right? So when we put regulation around monitoring and ensuring organizations are compliant, it puts the right amount of pressure to take, cyber resilience seriously. Like any other compliance. If you're in mining, I'm sure there are regulations around ensuring safety, right?
Yes.
And when you're dealing with customer data, or when you're dealing with systems in an organization, they should be the same amount of intention and seriousness taken around that. So that's really what frameworks are for. They're really helping to shift the culture to take cybersecurity seriously, and give you a compass of something to aim for and strive for in terms of achieving cyber resilience.
Yeah, when they say we're on a journey, the journey's a roundabout, basically.
Yeah, literally, right? So,
Yeah, and I also feel like there's really no excuse, because most of these frameworks are publicly accessible online. And looking at Zimbabwe's banking sector, we have the central bank, RBZ.
Yeah.
And if you go online and search for their cyber resilience guidelines, you can access them freely. There's absolutely no one to stop you.
Going a step further, beyond them being publicly available, there are solutions that help you achieve ISO certification, right, or framework certification. And I think that's the part where we have to hold ourselves accountable as security specialists and technocrats to say, let's leverage the tools that are there. Right? Don't reinvent the wheel. There's solutions that will help you speed up that certification process and that enablement and training. There's solutions that help you assess your risk. We talk about AI, but we're actually not applying it correctly in most cases. And I think it's just about really investing in the right skills also in our organization to have competent people that can actually run the function in this day and age. Because how we look at cybersecurity, I think 20 years ago, and how we look at cybersecurity in 2026, it's a very totally different environment that you're managing and monitoring. Your attack surface is way different from what it was before. So I think it's very important to invest in the right skills. And investment. I can't stress that enough to say we need to actually invest in cybersecurity as an organization from board level all the way down, because it's very critical to every function of our business.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned how cybersecurity 20 years ago is very different from what it is now. And, looking at banks, right, they say, oh, we have antivirus software, we've got firewalls, we're good, like, we haven't been hit yet.
Look, if someone tells me antivirus one more time,
you're going to crash out.
I'm going to crash out, because we've evolved so far from that, right? Okay. We look at antivirus. I mean, someone was saying, a friend of mine was saying, if I see antivirus again, I'm literally going to take people to the police station, because we've evolved the space of antivirus so far beyond to where we call it EDR now.
Okay.
Because the capability and the methodology around how we look at endpoint protection is very different from just antivirus.
Yeah.
And that's where that awareness training is important for organizations to understand that things have moved and evolved. The technologies we need to use have also evolved.
Yeah.
So you can't use a legacy approach when your adversary is moving 10 times ahead of you.
Definitely. Yeah. You kind of already started the conversation. I was going to ask you, what are some of the missing controls that are now emerging aside from the antivirus, the firewalls? Like, what are the urgent controls that need to be set in stone?
Look, that's a very exciting question for me, because I'm actually in the space providing these solutions. And for us, we're on the OEM vendor side of things as well. It's very exciting for us because we have a lot of product to take now to the market because the attack surface itself has expanded significantly. So before back in the day, you had an on-prem network that was very simple to protect. You had your firewalls, which was your first line of protection. You have your antivirus on the endpoints, and you had an AD to manage your accounts, etc. But it was very basic when you think about how to get visibility within your environment. But now your data is no longer central in a server somewhere. Your data is everywhere. It's on your phones. It's on the cloud. You're leveraging third-party applications, cloud-hosted applications. So your data is everywhere. So your environment, your digital estate is decentralized now. So each of those areas creates an entry point for an attacker, right? For an adversary. And that means you need to have solutions that cover across different sectors or segments of your environment. Now, the concept, and I always bring it to the same fundamental concept, that what you're trying to maintain is confidentiality, integrity, and availability across, right? Wherever your data is, wherever your environment is. So you need certain basic controls, like your EDR, your XDR, your network visibility, NDR, etc. You still need your firewalls for sure.
Your AI security.
Now that's more recent, right? Now we're talking about AI, so that's another area in itself where AI attacks are very different from what you used to around, endpoint security. You can't cover that with, your normal antivirus or your normal EDR. So you have to have solutions that look at AI specifically to ensure there's guardrails to monitor how you utilize those solutions, right? So that's actually a very interesting space, because everyone is trying to figure it out. I mean, I was in Nigeria about a month ago, and all the banks were speaking about AI security. Why? Because their current controls can't keep up to that, right? An attacker just needs to enter the right prompts, to exploit an AI tool and basically compromise your environment. You have banks that are building their own AI applications, right? And they need to be able to ensure that those solutions work correctly and safely. So that's another control area where you need to manage that. And I think it's more relevant for banks than ever because we're using AI tools. And AI tools are not going to go anywhere. It's an enabler. So we need to use it, right? If we're going to keep up with the trends and actually stay ahead, we have to leverage AI. But the question is, are we using it correctly? And are we using it in a safe manner, right? And that's where controls around the usage of AI become critical to look at and apply. So that's definitely one. I think AI security is one. Cloud also is an interesting space. Cloud security is obviously one of those areas that has been a gray area for a very long time, whether people use cloud or not, but you have to use it as well in some cases, and you have to protect the usage of that of cloud, right? You have to manage your applications, your infrastructure, and your platforms within that sector as well. So that's another area to look at. And then I think around proactive security, looking at how do you more proactively identify risk and lower it. You have to have solutions that help to give you intelligence around that. Where can adversaries get into your environment? So you have attack surface management, which looks at your external risk exposure, and then you have vulnerability management solutions that help give you visibility. I was actually interested and excited when I was having a conversation a month ago where you have to shift the conversation from quarterly pen test exercises. And I think this is information that is not very attractive for our consulting firms, because that's their bread and butter, right? But to be able to keep up with the risk that your organization face on a daily basis, you need something that is more systematic and that you can basically run on a daily basis, because your risk is changing daily, right? So there's solutions that do automated red teaming exercises like pen testing, right? And that give you a real-time view of what your risk looks like. As a CISO, as a head of cyber, I need to be able to monitor that on a daily basis, because my risk and my environment is changing daily. Right? My dev team is doing things there on a daily basis. My networking infrastructure team are updating and changing things. I've got a cloud team that's continuously, decommissioning and commissioning new servers and systems. I need to monitor that daily. So doing a quarterly pen test exercise,
it's not enough.
Is not enough.
Right?
So we need to leverage the systems and solutions that are available now, cutting edge, that help us to maintain our resilience on a daily basis. So those are some areas to look at, and I've just touched on different spaces, but I definitely say there's a lot more to protect. So we have to move with the times in that regard.
Yeah, I like what you said about monitoring daily, because one thing about hackers is they don't sleep. They spend hours and hours.
And you know what's funny? I was listening to someone say, well, we have a 8 to 5 SOC operation, right? And in my mind, I'm saying, but these guys actually go to work when you sleep.
Yeah, they do.
So it's good for them when you knock off at 5, because they start work at 10 in the evening.
Yeah,
right.
They do.
So you can't look at it from an IT manager position to say, well, I go home at 5. Cybersecurity is a 24/7 exercise. Right, and you need to have operations that give you that real-time visibility, continuously. So definitely, it's worthwhile reviewing how we look at our controls and updating it to the times that we live in.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the next segment.
Yeah.
So earlier mentioned people, process, and technology, and I think this is where a lot of banks and other institutions are lagging behind. And to me, I look at it as a triangle, whereas if one leg is broken, it's not going to balance.
Absolutely.
Right? So what do you think currently, looking at Zimbabwe's landscape, would be the most, the most fragile in that triangle? Like which leg is the most broken right now? Yeah.
Which leg is the most broken? And that's a very interesting question. I think you can't have availability secure without confidentiality, right? And then in terms of availability is also reliant on ensuring integrity, right? So all the pillars, kind of to your point, are related. You can't touch one and say one is stronger than the other. All of them pretty much impacting the next pillar, right? So I would say, just to look at it just from where Zim is, I think where we can improve is not being content with where we are.
Okay.
I think, just from my experience of traveling, I mean, I've worked everywhere, right? Across Africa and the Middle East, and just looking at how, people are very open to evolving, open to new ideas, open to new ways of doing things. I think in certain aspects we're very safe, right? And digital transformation doesn't require being safe, right? The guys that are innovators that that transform industries move very quickly, and technology is moving at a very, very fast pace. And I think that requires us to be a bit more open-minded to embrace new ideas and ways of doing things. And that's, again, a mind shift, right? To be open to trying new things and being okay to fail sometimes. but in that we grow and we evolve, right? And when we see things that work, we then quickly adopt them. So I think the openness to try new ideas, to run proof of concepts, right? And I think sometimes we're boggled in, I know process is great, but I think we're boggled in so many layers to like the CISO has so many layers to get things done, when he plays a very pivotal function, which, it does not allow us to move at the pace we need to evolve as organizations. And I think it's very critical that we, as much as we're trying to disrupt and evolve, we also allow, key players like CISO and guys who run security to also evolve at the same space, at the same pace, rather. Because that's how we keep up, right? If we've got a new threat or a new solution, a new segment, we move to cloud, we need to be able to move quickly to secure that environment. We need to have budget for that, and we need to basically try things, do POCs, do trials, engage different solution providers to see what is the best solutions we can bring in that can help us protect our organization. So I think I don't think it's a matter of the confidentiality and integrity and availability itself. I think it's just one, being aware of the risk and the need to evolve and move quickly, right? Yeah. Things are moving very, very quickly. I mean, if you think about the world 10 years ago from what it is now,
very different.
Night and day. Yeah. Right? So we need to allow ourselves to evolve very quickly. Technologies that worked 5 years ago are not relevant today.
Yeah.
Right. 5 years ago, an EDR was something, an NDR solution was something. Now you have decentralized networks, new platforms, you've got AI. So you need to be able to keep up with all those changes and all those trends to be able to secure your environment and stay ahead. Right?
Yeah, you're right. Tech is all about staying updated because it's continuously evolving. It's not a static playbook. There's just more and more each time. And I really agree that the leadership, the CISOs, the CIOs also need to stay updated. It's not just about decision making. It's also about knowing what's going on. And you just reminded me, last year, I think I attended GITEX. I don't know if you know.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
I attended, was it GITEX or GISEC? One of the two.
One
of the two. And, it just really opens your eyes to see that there's so much going on out there. You've got hundreds of entities showcasing what they're doing with tech, what they're doing with AI, how it's evolving. So I think even attending expos like that and exposing yourself to what's going on outside of the country, outside of Africa, and we have a lot of catching up to do. So
but we're very resilient. I know, once we lock into something, we can get it done. And I think it's just us embracing the world that we live in now. Right, to say it's a digital world, and if we are going to stay ahead, we have to come to the party there to allow ourselves to evolve and grow.
All right, so as we're winding up, I would just like to say my takeaway from everything that you said, and I'll also ask you any last words. But I wanted to say that I think banks should know what they have, what's in place, what's missing. They should know what's broken, in these systems. They can fix what's broken, and then from then on, continuously monitor, any controls that they then put in places to fill in the gap.
Absolutely.
So my question for you is, what are your last words, especially regarding the efforts, the positive efforts that Zimbabwe has put regarding cybersecurity? I've been seeing a lot of AI summits happening in Zimbabwe. The Minister of ICT has, laid out some of the strategies that have been put in place for the next maybe 5 years that could really, improve our posture. So my question to you is, what are your comments on, the efforts that Zim is putting, aside from, the risks and the vulnerabilities? I think we're also really trying to do our best with what we have. So what are your comments on that?
Absolutely. I think it's a very exciting time in Zimbabwe because you can see that there's a lot of shift happening. Like I said earlier on, that the digital transformation agenda is very clear, and I can see it. And I'm sure we all can see that, we're moving at a very fast pace, as we should. I think where we are also obviously figuring out is the cybersecurity component, right? And and I can tell you it's not a Zim issue. Everyone is trying to figure it out, right?
Yes.
Every country you go to, everyone is trying to figure out how do we keep up and secure our environments, and how do we effectively do it. What's exciting about Zimbabwe is also I think we've got very intelligent people, and we've got a lot of Zimbabweans in and outside of Zimbabwe that have a very dear passion to contribute to the disruption that's happening here, the positive disruption that's happening here. And I think it's just a matter of time until we shine it to everyone else. Because what I like about Zimbabwe as well is that we are actually in a place where we're making the decisions that are best for us as a country, and I can see that the decisions we're making, how they trickle down to the average person as well. And I think it's just a matter of time until we're actually leading and that number drops, right? Zimbabwe being the most targeted or most affected, I think that number is going to drop very significantly with the efforts that are being put in place. And that's where organizations like ECB come in with the right expertise and the right solutions to help the efforts that are there to push us in the right direction. So I think it's an exciting time for us, and I think it's just a matter of time till that light starts shining to everyone else. And I think, like I said, it's about being very open to new ideas, and it's about allowing ourselves to be very innovative as a country that will make that big difference for us.
Yeah, definitely. And, there are frameworks being put in place, like RBZ, cybersecurity guidelines. We have the Cyber and Data Protection Act.
Absolutely.
All of those.
Absolutely.
So that's really great to see. Do you have any last words before we end our episode?
Last words are, I think, for someone like myself who's very passionate about the space, because I see the relevance and importance of it, is let's keep having these conversations. I think they're necessary. I think cybersecurity is a joint effort. No one can figure it out in isolation. It requires both private sector, public sector, requires experts and technocrats coming together to collaborate and come up with great ideas to help secure our country and secure our organizations. And I think with that approach, we'll never fail. I think we'll be able to lead the space.
Definitely. All right, thank you so much for joining the Cyber Bar podcast today. My name is Gamo. This is Derek, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.